The murder trial for Dylann Roof has begun, and of course it's already started with some dramatic situations. Apparently, during one witness testifying during the case, Dylann Roof's mom had a heart attack. The details of what occurred that day were so grisly that apparently she apologized repeatedly and then proceeded to have a heart attack. Now, prosecutors described how her son planned a cold and calculated killing of 9 black church members in a racially motivated attack. This happened in South Carolina. Roof's mother collapsed and said, "I'm sorry," several times on Wednesday as family members and court security came to help her. Now, other things happened, including Dylann Roof's attorney asking for a mistrial, but we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah, I actually thought the more amazing part of the story was that the survivor's testimony was so powerful that almost everybody in the courtroom was crying, including the prosecution and the defense attorney. So when you've done something so heinous, even your own lawyer cries over what you did. Oof. And we know what Dylann Roof did. You know, he's alleged to have shot and murdered 9 people in that church. And I'm not a Christian, I'm not a religious person, but as I imagine for a lot of good Christians on that jury and in that courtroom, in South Carolina, was they showed the pictures of the dead bodies and the blood right next to the scattered Bibles. Jeez. It's hard not to get very, very emotional about that.
Yeah, everyone in that courtroom was shown just the most graphic photos of the scene and graphic video of the scene. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to look at. And imagine the person being accused being your son or your own child. Like, anyone would feel sick to their stomach.
Yeah, I understand how she could be under a great deal of stress.
Yeah.
Everyone seemed to be affected by it. And yeah, when I read this, I thought it was metaphorical, but to find out that it actually physically happened to her. I mean, I don't know what to say about it other than this is an extremely traumatic thing for people to have experienced in the first place, find out about the news, and then as part of the trial have recounted to them step by step. You get to watch again the video of him going into the church and then leaving the church. They were played his confession where he laughs, and then you get to see the crime scene photos. It's one of those things where absolutely it's going to affect everyone. And I can't imagine what it must have been like to be the people who went through this ordeal, who were
in that church and experienced it. In fact, one of the women who testified already is Felicia Sanders. She was there when the shooting happened. She was a survivor. And because of her testimony, Roof's attorney claimed that we needed a mistrial. So let me give you the details on that. Now, Roof's attorney mentioned the heart attack in court documents asking for a mistrial, saying a survivor's testimony was so emotional that spectators and even court personnel, including members of the prosecution and defense, were crying with her. Now, Felicia Sanders said the following, and Roof's attorney feels like this was a suggestion about the sentence he should get, but the judge disagreed. Sanders says, "He said he was going to kill himself. I was counting on that. There's no place on earth for him other than the pit of hell." Now, the judge responded back and said that wasn't really a comment on his sentence. It was a religious statement, and so no, you will not get a mistrial.
Right. Now, it's inventive, and the defense has to do their best in trying to defend this monster. So say, you should go to hell. Maybe that's a suggestion about his sentencing. No, it's not. Get out of here, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
There's no hell penalty in the
there's no such thing.
federal law.
If there is a hell, it's maybe in Sheriff David Clark's prisons in Milwaukee, but it's not supposed to exist under our Constitution. Okay, now finally, if you remember when Roof was first brought in to court after we caught him, the judge asked that we think about his family too. Not only the victims' families, but his families. And I have to be honest, I was really pissed about that. Because when there is other races, black people are brought in and they've killed 9 people, very rarely does somebody say, well, what about their families?
No, in fact,
I feel really bad for their families.
If it's an attack or a mass killing carried out by a Muslim individual, no one's asking to consider their families. In fact, everyone is urging us to judge their families and punish their families and judge anyone who has that exact religion. So
when I saw the Tsarnaev family get interviewed, I did feel bad for the parents there. They were shocked. So in that situation, I did go through that, wondering what it must be like for a parent, because part of me wants to blame the parents for raising this kid.
Yeah.
The parent in this situation definitely feels bad, as would the parent of any person of any race if their child goes off and kills a bunch of people who were defenseless at the time.
So
it's so traumatizing.
So that's a great point about the Tsarnaevs, and so they grew up in the Boston area, and you look at them, you go, okay, that could be a family that I knew, right?
Right.
So nobody thinks Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's family in Pakistan, right? Like nobody cares about that, right?
You never hear.
Yeah, and so okay, I get that. It's very understandable. But there are right wingers who say, well, look at the environment they grew up in, and why didn't they turn them in? Why didn't they turn them in? And I blame all the moderate Muslims. Okay, so and you know what Trump said, and this is what I'm leading to. Trump said we should kill the family members of terrorists. Now, Dylann Roof wrote a manifesto. It was a political and racial attack. He said it, he proudly declares it, and he's going to declare it again in trial. A political attack where you murder innocent civilians is the definition of terrorist. So under Trump's philosophy, we should have murdered his mom. Now, we are not monsters like that. So when I heard that she had a heart attack, I was like, God, I hope she's okay. So as much as I might have been angry on the first day about needlessly bringing his family up and wondering how they're feeling, when they're actually hurt, I'm like, no, somebody get him help, for God's sake. And she survived, thank God. Because you know why? Because she didn't do it. That's not the country we live in, where you punish people who didn't do it because they're related to the people who did it. I hope that that's not the society we are. So I think Brett's right. I think the overwhelming majority of us don't feel that way. But there are some who do. One of them is the president. So no, don't do anything to Dylann Roof's parents or family, and that applies for all criminals. You know who makes independent media possible? You guys. Because of you, we can actually do this show free of any outside influence. That's what makes us so strong. Become a member today. tytnetwork.com/join. You are the media.